welcome to the Lagan Stream Podcast. I'm joined today by Emery Hinphey. And as you know, when you have a small business and you want to grow, the key thing is to employ people and work with other people. So how do you hire the right people? How do you motivate and grow the people you do hire? And how do they help grow you? So the expert in all those matters of people strategy, human resources, personnel is Emery Hinphey. And she's going to be the next guest at the West Belfast Small Business Roundtable on the 29th of April on Culturland. Emer, welcome to the Lagan Stream Podcast. It's early on Good Friday morning. Usually should be doing the Stations of the Cross, but thanks for taking a morning off.
I'll go there.
So tell us a little bit about your upbringing, because like lots of people, you come to Belfast, take our jobs, but you're not actually from Belfast. You're from a much more epicenter of culture and sport and erudition and learning in County Derry.
I am. I'm from Dungiven. So, excuse me. So yeah, grew up in Dungiven, small country, Irish town, very Irish in terms of, as you said, a cultural hub. So our house was full of sport. For starters, it was probably the dominant factor. My father was from Kilkenny, although all of the genes were from the north, but from Kilkenny. He was born and raised there, so was an absolute hurling evangelist. My childhood kind of was played to the soundtrack of the Sunday game and me holding my Hurtak in the background. And I think I said to you, my christening, family legend has it, my christening was cancelled a couple of times for hurling matches, but that's just how it was, But in retrospect, what a great way to grow up. My brothers and my dad headed off hurling practice, hurling games together through club and county. Dad also coached the Derry footballers at a point. And Mum was deeply involved in music. She also played camogie for Derry, actually, but it was music that Mum brought into the house, really. She took the school plays, the school choirs, the chapel choirs, so we were all singing and playing instruments. I didn't carry that through, but and there was always a lot of Irish in the house. My dad was a fluent Irish speaker, and my mum always made an effort to encourage us to speak some, but we didn't do as much of it as we should have then.
And home followed you to school?
Pardon me?
Home followed you to school because your father was also a teacher at the school you attended.
He was. So my mum was my primary one teacher. So my mum was his teacher in the primary school I was in. And then I went to the secondary school to give him where my dad was the vice principal. And he was also one of the, if you were in trouble, you got sent to my dad. So that was an interesting experience. But my dad taught me English literature and English. And Seamus Heaney was one of the big ones. So there's lots of lovely memories that came from having your father in the school as well,
But like the two most successful business people in West Belfast, Peter Curston, who built the Odyssey Centre, and Hugh Curley-Kennedy, who built the Kennedy Centre, you didn't pass the 11 plus. And
no.
So how did that affect you? What was that second phase of education like for you?
Yeah. So I didn't pass 11 plus. I should have, but there were incidents that occurred in the day, and I was thinking about this, the sliding doors thing. If I had, I probably would have ended up in Loretto. And I didn't. I went to the local secondary school, and it was such an enriching experience. I was decent academically, but I wasn't the top of the class. But in that school, it was just a different environment. You had people from all sorts of backgrounds, people with different levels of academic ability. And I think just the pastoral care and the connectedness was much deeper because everybody knew each other. You were all from the same town. All the teachers knew you, knew your parents. So that experience was great. And, I did do well in that school, brilliantly well, probably better than I would have in a grammar school where there was a much, bigger occupancy and all of those things. There's a lot to be said for, the nature of the environment as well as the ranking of the school, I think, when people are looking for their kids. And then I went to Loretto to do my levels and did my levels there.
So there's an interesting thing there. I don't want to jump too far ahead because I want to come back to why you are self-employed and why you're running your own business. But there's a sense of democracy about that approach, which I think you take to your work as well, and inclusion. And maybe that was formed at home, but also at maybe a comprehensive school and at the grammar school, was it? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely, at the comprehensive school. Absolutely. I am quite, what's the word? I'm really quite unwavering around some certain values, and equality is one of them. And I know exactly where that came from. My dad was very much quality, and also, doing your bit. My dad was very much of a contribution, while his was through sport. A lot of that was about, young people, keeping young people engaged. A great guy told me a story at my dad's wake about being taken off to the Fela somewhere down the country anyway. And when he said, Emer, I couldn't play hurling. I was no good. He said, but there were, I don't know, many people who were in that house growing up. And he said, I know your father only took me because he knew I didn't get to go anywhere, So these things are opportunities to do something more than sport. And I get that opportunity now with Breda. And then my mum was really involved in the civil rights movement, and we always were. It was just very clear everybody's equal, and that's how you should enter into the world. So I carried that with me for sure.
And of course, that was with you in the university because you got very involved in, I don't know, it's a dismissive term, pejorative to say student politics, but you're very, very involved in the student union and so on. You didn't travel very far now to university. You're a bit of a,
No.
I suppose, but tell us what you did at university and how that, did that at all shape your decision to become an entrepreneur?
I don't know. It's hard to know. But so I ended up going to McGee, which is half an hour in the road. I was supposed to go to Manchester, and it's a bit of the same sliding door thing. By a quirk of fate, the university rang and offered me the same course in University of Ulster in the McGee campus. Of course, there were a lot of tears when I realised that, the affordable thing to do was to go to the University of Ulster instead of heading off and to spend my Saturday nights in the Hacienda, which was the plan at the time. But once again, I was down there for 5 years, or up there, I should say. What a great city, great people. I had the most exceptional experience, and I think it's back to that. Sometimes the thing you think that isn't a good thing ends up being absolutely a great thing. And again, that city itself, such a great environment, such a connected city. It probably suits me. It's small. You can get to know people. People can get to know you. And the student politics part of it was probably just typical of my life, I guess. Wherever I am, I seem to find things to do, and I seem to get involved in stuff. But it's just, I think it's just following.
Was that part involved in student union, student politics? Did that help you later on when you were doing your job? You're dealing with people, but you're also advising people on how to deal with people. Was politics here can be a very polarizing thing, but was that student politics experience useful in later life, or was it just fun?
It was great fun, but it was very useful, and it was insightful as well, because it wasn't just the local student politics stuff, really. Like, I was the representative for USI, and I used to go to a national conference in England and stuff, and that was proper politics. It was very interesting to watch the dynamic there and how people voted and what questions were tabled and all of that. But actually, it was just nice. I mean, I was the president when the first gay disco started in McGee, for example, and it was really popular, and it was the only event for gay people. In the surrounding areas. It was around every week when it happened. A lot of the visiting students, foreign students, as we used to call them, got a lot of those guys working in the students' union, So I think, I was able to make a bit of a difference, even at a very practical level, which was nice.
Well, let's come back to values in a minute, but we always ask people in these in the little small business roundtables we have, why did you go into business on your own? Because some of it can be very difficult, challenging, lonely at times, but you're the first who said because you don't like being told what to do. And that's probably a strong motivator to be self-employed, but not necessarily a motivator to grow a business. But what do you mean by that? That part of your reason, and maybe you said it in jest, of wanting to have your own operation was you didn't like being told what to do, even though you did end up with a business partner. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think we knew each other well enough. Neither of us told each other what to do, so that I think I might fall into the same category. But you asked a question that I didn't answer. Did some of the experience in university inform later life? Absolutely, it does. And I'd advise anybody to get involved in other things. I was speaker for a while. That develops your speaking skills, your ability to stand up and speak to a room of people, welfare officer and president, and you just learn administration skills and, all sorts of stuff. So no, it's definitely helped. And I think I probably hit the ground quicker as a result of it. But why did I start working for myself? I don't like being told what to do. I think my father once described me as, that girl's very independent, Sheila. I'll not go into the detail of that story. Actually, we'll just drop that one. But equally, I think I started doing pieces of work just as projects. In between jobs. I was taking a couple of months out and realized that I liked the independence of it, the ability to go in, strip away all of the day-to-day stuff and be able to go in as a kind of independent actor, nearly get the job done and then step away. And that did suit me as well because, I'm a kind of doer. So you don't get caught up in all the day-to-day admin and all of that. You can go in, really focus on the task at hand, see things from an independent perspective, and actually see an outcome quite quickly. So I enjoyed that part of it too. So, the not being told what to do was only a very small part of it in the end.
Yeah, there is a great Ulster Scots word, thrawn. I don't know if Ulster Scots is very big and ungiven, but stubborn. But you're not really thrawn, but you're opinionated, I suppose. But you're also good. I think you're because you have to be in your business. You have to be a good listener because you're working with a lot of employers and employees. So maybe you don't like being told what to do, but it doesn't mean that you take obstructive positions, I think. So when you're meeting employers, do you meet a lot of people, a lot of alpha males, I presume in particular, that they don't want to be told anything, but sometimes that's not the best way forward. So the balance.
Like I think that's fair. And like there's plenty of Ulster Scots spoken everywhere. Of course, I know what thran means. But I'm not thran, I'm definitely not. And actually I'm probably quite, I'm the kind of person who balances things up. I don't tend to have absolute positions because I do think that the minute you assume you're the only person with the right answer in the room, you've got pretty arrogant. There's always different perspectives. From a client perspective, I think I'm good at building relationships. I like people, which is a good starting point. And I'm considered and I like to understand things. So actually I listen because I really am interested. And then you do sometimes have to get to a point where you can hold your own as well, though, because our job is also to encourage a client either not to make the wrong decision or not to make a risky decision or make it very, very clear what the risks are. And, you have to be able to be listened to. And then in the more strategic work, it's, it's about encouraging clients to do what's right rather than what they think they need to do sometimes. And that may sometimes encourage them not to spend money on things that aren't going to deliver the result they think. But if I feel very strongly about something, I will absolutely say it, no matter how unpopular it is,
So you have a strong foundation in university, with a degree and a master's and the whole area of staff development and people management and so on. But then you set up with a business partner. You set up Think People. Tell us what Think People was and what. Well, we'll talk later about it became. But why did you decide to move from just project to actually say, now I'm going to need other people as well in this business, not only a partner but employees?
I think some people started a business because they just always wanted to. And for me, it was more of an evolution than a master plan. I met Anne Dugan, who, and that just was another sliding door moment. We both were working in freelance. We were both busier than we could handle. And I think because we had very different, slightly different styles, but very similar values. We were very focused on doing really good quality work. And, some of those people that, I was working with freelance, we're still working with now. So it's more that it became a decision. Do we want to kind of combine our efforts, create something, register a company and grow it? Or do we want to just keep with the kitchen table? And we just made that decision that we should go for it because it was an exciting opportunity. So that was the reason. And then we did it from the kitchen table, but as a company for a while, we launched Think People, and then we sort of took it from there. But Think People was a people consultancy, outsourced HR, all of your day-to-day stuff. We will be your HR team or your HR department, from everything up to then learning and development, leadership development, coaching, all the strategic stuff around culture and change. So we ended up kind of with that full range of experts in the team.
So you were able to offer that advice and the theory and so on, but then you had to start employing people. So what was it like, the rubber hit the road when you had to not only depend on you, I can do these things, but then you have to actually put it into practice?
And I think when we spoke before, Máirtín, you were saying, well, like you obviously do it perfectly, but to comfort all the other employers out there, it's a very different thing advising and actually employing people yourself. We know what to do, but every person you work with is different. The person who's your perfect colleague, I don't like the word employee, but your perfect colleague is great until something changes and maybe they decide they need a change or something's going on at home. there's always ebbs and flows. But the big thing you can look at is, well, like, are you running a business that people want to be in and that values the people and gives them the opportunity they're looking for? Because there's just so many other companies out there now who will. The standards or the expectations have increased because the standards of, how colleagues or employees are looked after now are just completely different because there aren't enough people. So
And I think People was very successful business dealing with large corporates, but a lot of small businesses as well, giving expert advice, helping with strategy, not just working with crises, but also trying to advise or counsel or direct companies into longer term people strategies.
yeah.
Then you did something else with the business. You were acquired. You sold the business, and tell us about that and where you are now. This AAB. What is that?
So we sold the business to AAB. AAB are actually an accounting and finance company, but had bought a couple of other people businesses to kind of, I suppose, have parallel services around the two real engines of any business, finance and people. So we are now part of the AAB People business unit, and I lead out the Ireland region. But that decision, I suppose, it came largely because Anne was ready to retire, and just the opportunity came at the right time. We went out, sort of looked into the market, and met the guys at AAB, and it's been very positive. Difficult process, but a positive experience.
Yeah. And Anne has now moved on to pastures greener and retired and so on. You've stayed with AAB, but that's another change for you. So you've moved from student to project manager on your own to employer, whether you like the word employee or not. Employer, I run the business, and now
Absolutely.
you don't want to say you're an employee again, but now you're working for other people. So it's a different challenge.
It is a different challenge, and I don't mind the word employer. It's more, I don't like the word staff or employee, but maybe that goes back to my non-hierarchical kind of roots.
It
Now I'm
might
an employee again. Yeah,
it might actually go back to you don't like being told what to do, but setting that
yes,
aside, how are you able to take your values with you in that journey? Because you were very
yeah.
strong values at the start of it. So changing the conditions of your work life, but do your values, is it possible to have the values remain consistent in that?
It is. I have to say, I just don't, I realize that the older I get, the more stubborn I get around that. I just wouldn't compromise on my values. That's too important. But when we met different people who were interested in having a conversation with us around whether we'd be a good fit and all of that, when we met the people from AB, I have to say, even the first meeting, I was like, I like these people. Pretty straightforward. They're Scottish-based company, so mostly Scots we were meeting at that point. Straightforward, down to earth, but a crack, serious business people, knew their stuff, but certainly very respectful and interested. And, the more we got to meet them, the more that sort of continued through. So you never know. Then you sign the dotted line and you hope that what you think you're getting, you get. And it has been like that. There's definitely been a transition for me, no doubt, but the people are exactly who they said they were, and it's been a positive experience, I suppose, from that perspective.
And some of the people that come to our roundtables are very small businesses. That idea of keeping your values, your principles, not compromising that at the same time you're saying that you do have to give and take. Is that a luxury, or would you say to people, if you obviously really believe in your business and your business model and the value you bring, that
Yeah.
you have to ditch some stuff to do the job? Is that a luxury, or do you think the businesses and somebody starting a small business, they should stay with their values or principles, or should they just throw them out and get other principles?
I think you set yourself up for a really uncomfortable life if you start to work against the things that matter most to you, or if you start to compromise them. It's a very personal decision whether either a piece of work or business matters more than, but the internal tension would be too much for me. I'm not very, so
Well,
yeah, for me, I couldn't. So yeah.
Well, to bring it back to really important things and what really matters, just to finish, sports very important to you, and you're acclaimed, revered coach in South Belfast. So tell us just to finish with the coaching you're doing and why that's important to you, because and it probably does help your work life, but I don't think you're being given work because you're a camogie coach. But tell us about that. What's the importance of that?
An element of it is just pure joy. There's something absolutely lovely about seeing the dance that a 13 or 12-year-old does when they get something right or they score a goal, and that's lovely. And also that opportunity to work with young people and shape them and help them. And you get loads back as well because, it's really rewarding. And my mom and dad were both teachers. So I guess there's something in there that runs through the genes. And the sport piece and contribution piece was also always something that came through so strong from dad, in particular from the sports perspective. So, I think again, you do what you see, don't you? My brothers all coach in their various clubs. One's in Wicklow and Greystones, and the other two are still up at home and are deeply involved in the GAA. And I think it just, it nearly was part of my fate, whether I liked it or not. But I did play camogie for Breda for about 10 years, having played at home as well and played for Jordanstown. And now I'm on the wrong side of 50 and therefore the wrong side of playing camogie very much. But, it's a great club. It's a great way to get to know people in your local area, and all of a sudden you are like, it does feel more like you're living in a town than living in a big city. So, no, that's I've been part of Breda for maybe 15 years now, longer.
But it was a very successful decade for Breda, so I'm putting that in the record. Thanks for being with us this morning. Looking forward to seeing you on the 29th of April, 8 a.m. in the morning in Coulterland. Thanks for all the help you and Anne give the sort of business projects I was involved with over the years. And I'm recommending AAB to everyone who's starting out, and take the weight off people, have someone on your side, great counsel, and very sensible advice. So looking forward to seeing you on the 29th. Thank you very much.
Good, Máirtín.
Long before.